Hope I get the chance to travel the world, but I don't have any plans. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wise.
One thing what I'm doing Bruce Lee, because I'm going to talk about a classic now, that being Bruce Lee in the classic, why not, why the fucking not, Enter the Dragon. A lot of people review Enter the Dragon, they say it was his best, they say it was his classic, and I can fucking see why. I'm going to do a bit of thing here as well. Over the years, before I ever saw Bruce Lee films, whether it be The Big Boss, Fist of Fury and so on, I was more into Jackie Chan. You know what I mean? In the days when I was a bit smaller and I was younger, I used to watch all the Jackie Chan films on the golden days of video and so on. You know, days of Beast Story, Armour of God, Beast Story 2. You know, I do up what's in Van Damme and all that lot. It was only when I once saw a video called The Legend, which was like a biography about Bruce Lee, so in all his films, it told a bit of his life story when he was a kid, when he was a kid actor, and so on. I thought, this guy's pretty cool. You know, he died in his early 30s, pretty sad. I've never seen Bruce Lee. I've never seen him. It's like I said, I do what's in Jackie Chan, I do what's in Van Damme, you know, Arnie, Psy, all that lot, list goes on. It was only when someone lent me a video, a friend of mine lent me a video, and it was Enter the Dragon. I watched it, saw it, fucking loved it, and I loved Bruce Lee. I thought he was brilliant. He was a lot more serious, he wasn't as humorous as Jackie Chan was. You could definitely see why people say he was good at martial arts. He definitely had the speed, the stamina, he knew how to do things. Like this one, for instance, he had a hand, he did this, did that, test his fist, knock people on the arse. That is probably why they always had respect for Bruce Lee. Over the years, no one's ever shit on him, no one's ever said anything bad about him, and you can definitely see why they named him The Legend. The Legend. Now, apart from talking and loving Bruce Lee, let's get on with the fucking film. What can I say about Enter the Dragon, apart from it being a fucking classic? It starts off with a beautiful opening and a bit of good 70s music, and it starts off with a go to a martial art tournament. Bruce Lee, tap dancing, another date guy does martial arts. It's not like James Bond becomes Bruce Lee, because in sort of a way he's a secret agent. He goes undercover, and he also wants revenge of the death of his sister, because his sister was murdered by one of these assholes who does martial arts. Beautiful scene, because he jumps on the fucker's chest. Beautiful. You've got a very long Paulo Lung. You know what Paulo Lung is? Think of Bloodsport. And it's pretty awesome. You know, you've got all take fight scenes in it. You got everything. Martial arts, the fucking lot. You even do get Jackie Chan in the film. There's a scene, right? I shit you not, where Bruce Lee gets a Chinese guy by his fucking hair, snaps his fucking neck, and that, believe it or not, was Jackie Chan. Because Jackie Chan appeared in a lot of his films as a stuntman. That's how he used to make his living before he went into martial arts. And yeah, he met Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee even said one day you'll become famous. But it was a good film, Bruce Lee, you know what I mean? And there's actually 2 edited versions of it. There's been a lot of different versions of Enter the Dragon over the years, and I originally saw the original one, you know, with the Warner Brothers logo. It used to start like that, with 3 logos, and had the original logo. It's hard to explain it, because so I could get shit for copyright. But the very early logo, if everyone remembers Warner Brothers, you remember the line logo, it was a fire out, and then another one, and it was in red, and that's the original logo. And it's like I say, he's a secret agent. This guy sends him out on a mission, goes undercover to find that the guy is actually a dog pusser. He has a mecha hand and all, made out of metal. That reminds me a bit of the Burning Doctor, no? Which one of the reviews said it was similar to that. And he has this beautiful fight scene. You know, you've got the 2-way mirrors, which everyone remembers. There was even a making back in the day when Enter the Dragon come out. Beautiful scene, fight scene, kicks his fucking ass. kills him. But it's like I said, there are two versions of it. They had the uncut, the directors, and so on. I do actually prefer the uncut because that's people who know Bruce Lee. There was a famous scene where he uses a weapon, and it was called the nunchucker. And for this, and fucking this, that's been cut out of Enter the Dragon. He's been using a lot of his other films and all, but he uses the nunchucker, and he whacks people. It's been not only just been cut out of Bruce Lee, but it's been cut out of a lot of other films, you know. Elm Street 4, they cut the nunchucker scene out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie ones, some of the scenes with nunchuckers, cut out. I'd be there all fucking day naming every fucking film where they cut out the nunchuckers. Let's not forget the film I reviewed, Dream State. There's a scene in that with nunchuckers cut out. And the reason for that was because a lot of fucking stupid newspapers, you know, your dickhead censorship, thought, oh, kids are going to copy that, they're going to get that weapon and they're going to twat people. At the end of the day, it's a fucking movie. If kids shouldn't be watching it, it was rated fucking 18, and if kids are so fucking dumb, that's their fucking problem for being fucking dum-dums. That's like fucking cutting out the famous Psycho for the famous knife scene. Pretty fucking stupid, isn't it? What are you going to do? Fucking replace it with a fucking sausage? It's a fucking movie for crying out loud. But happy to say, over the years, the numbskulls drew a fucking brain and re-put the cut scenes with Bruce Lee and his beautiful nunchuckers, as well as other films with them scenes with nunchuckers, back in the film. There's, like I say, a few versions. There's one version which was never shown where it shows him walking and he meets his guy who's teaching the martial arts, who tells him about the tournament, and then he meets the guy who's the boss, who's in the Secret Service, who sends him out. Now again, there's a reason why his sister got killed, and this reason why is some fucking arsehole pushed her into it, and they chased her, and it was either get beaten to death or take your life. She took her life, because in many ways it's better than being fucking beaten to death. Bruce Lee gets his fucking own back and jumps on the fucker's chest, like I said. I do love the uncut scene where poor old Lung, the magnetic martial artist himself, gets his fucking ties and he crushes them with his bare arms. Oh, it's beautiful, just fucking beautiful. The only bit I do have issue with is Jack Palance, I think that's his name. You know, he's been in a lot of films. The original Elm Street, he was in a lot of films. And he fights poor old Lung, kicks his ass and kills him. To be honest, as soon as that would have been Bruce Lee, that epic fight scene with poor old Lung, you know, dying blood sport. I thought that would have been a bit more epic and more better, but that's the only issue. Apart from that, Enter the Dragon, no matter what version, whatever fucking version you get, it's still a fucking classic. Saw Enter the Dragon when it was on video, saw it on DVD, saw the fucking directors, saw the uncut version, whatever version's out there, I loved it. I fucking loved it. Then I remember getting other videos of Bruce Lee, whether it be The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, let me think, yeah, Way of the Dragon with my mate, Chuck Norris. The only one where I'm a bit is Dame of Death, because Dame of Death really was not really technically a Bruce Lee film, because as we all know, he was filming bits of Dame of Death, right? He only did so many bits, and that's when he lost his life, sadly to say. So the rest of the fucking film is a lookalike. He's a guy running around with a fucking cutout of Bruce Lee's fucking head. I'm not making this shit up. It's a cutout of his head stuck on another man's fucking body. You can definitely see it. Or it's a fucking lookalike. You only get the decent lookalike is nearly at the fucking end. One of them looks fuck all like Bruce Lee. And the fucking used bits and bobs of footage from all his old films, redubbed over it. There's your fucking Bruce Lee. It's only at the end you see the footage what was in the original 1972 Dame of Death. Now, to cut the story short, we all know at the time Bruce Lee died. You know, he died, you know, not long after doing Enter the Dragon. He was ready to do Dame of Death, and he had that paracetamol because he had a bit of a headache, and he had a allergic reaction to it. We know the story. He sadly lost his life. And what also makes it sadder was when this was premiered on theatre back in the day, he never got to see the film. People never got to see Bruce Lee in the Django opening, the star of the fucking film. And it's fucking heartbreaking. You know, he was only in his early 30s. He was still a young man. And there's bits in there what I would have loved to see what he would have done had he would have lived through the 80s and so on. We'll never see it. And it's a fucking shame. But you know what I mean? He's still a legend, and in spirit, Bruce Lee still lives on. In books, in the books what he did in his martial arts days when he was training martial arts, in his films, posters, biographies, so on. You get action stars who now you can see are aging. Bruce Lee, in my eyes, will always belong, will always be the fucking legend of martial arts. You can never take that away from the man. And no one's ever spoke ill of him, and I never speak ill of him. I mean, I grew up watching Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris, I grew up watching fucking Van Damme films. It was only through my later years, when I was reaching my 20s, I watched Bruce Lee. And I've got to admit, I like him. And I love Enter the Dragon. I love most of his films. You know what I mean? I mean, the dubbing of his early ones weren't the best. But then, if a dub, did you really go into martial art films with great fucking dubbing? But that's not against Bruce Lee. I'm just saying the dubbing weren't that great. But all in all, I like Bruce Lee. He's a legend. I love Enter the Dragon. Kicks ass. I do love the scene where the guy says that scene before he gets killed. And he says, "Man, you come out for comic book." Awesome. So check out Enter the Dragon, 1973. Fuck it, they never make films like this anymore, and it's a fucking damn shame. So it's the least I can do to respect my mate Bruce. "30-star rating, because it kicks the shit out of some of the shit you see nowadays." I might even talk a bit more about Bruce and some of maybe Jackie Chan's and so on. Into then, I'm about to kick ass myself. See you later.